This is Stephanie with Hightower Stitching. Today's video is hand stitching the Courthouse Star. It's a variation of the log cabin. The block for this project is going to be large. The ending size is 23 1/4 inches. It's going to be made up of 9 blocks. And if you look at the pattern below, you will see that each corner is going to have a block, and that's just solid. And then you'll have a center block, which is made out of 7 strips. And the remaining blocks, the last 4, are called the log cabin courthouse blocks. There'll be 4 of those for this project. Here's an example of the 23-inch block. And it's a very good size. It's too big for a pillow, but it would make a great accent piece to put on the edge of a chair, to put on a table, something like that. And if you look at it, you'll start to see the 9 blocks you're going to have. These are just solid black, whatever you want for your background color. And there's 4 of those, so that's easy to do. Then in the center, there are 7 strips that are sewn together. Each of the strips in this project are 1.5 inches wide. And we'll look at the lengths in just a second. But you can see the courthouse steps. And here you have the steps going up. And then even in the black part, you have it going over. And when I started, I chose the colorful part that I wanted to use. First, the material. And then I went in and I picked an accent color. This came out of a magazine that I found from 1993. A lady in Quebec had made this block and put it in the magazine. And it's a variation of the log cabin block. I like to get the pattern organized before I start cutting, so I really know what I'm going to get. So here's a chart that I used. And again, the strips are 1.5 inches wide. You're going to basically have 3 colors. And the first column is the pattern fabric, which I used that multicolored with the pinks and blues. And then the color you'd like to be solid. And then the black or the background color that you're going to use. And if you look over there on the left, the first row going across, the 1.5 inch squares, you're going to have 4 of each of your colors if you go across. Then you're going to have 3.5 inch strips. You're going to need 8 of your pattern and then 4 of your other 2 colors. The next one's 5.5 inches. Need 8 and then 4 and 4. And then finally, your pattern color, you're going to need 15 pieces, and it's 7.5 inches. And in addition, when you finish, as you get to the end, if you look down the black column, you'll see you'll need 4 7.5 inch squares. Those will make your corners. And then if you want to, and then I finished it with this, is to put a 1.5 inch border all the way around the block. So I got all my pieces cut. And you can see right here, these are everything I started with, trying to get them all there so you can see them. That was the basic parts to do the first couple of blocks of the quilt. And in this project, I cut the pieces exactly the same length as they should be, because then if I did my stitching consistently 1/4 of an inch on my seams, then these pieces should fit very well. And usually they did. The very first block is really easy. You're going to take 7 of those 7.5 inch strips. And a nice way to do it is to take and put 2 together at a time and stitch those. To get the next 2 and stitch them, and the next 2, and then sew those patches together. Now this can be done on the sewing machine, but I wanted to do it by hand because I've gotten really back into sewing by hand again. And I'm going to start putting together the last section. I've got all of my bars ready. I'm just going to make the last seam. This is just a review of one way to start. I got a nice sharp needle. I checked my thread and it was really strong. It wasn't going to break. And so I said I'm going to cut down on the bulk by having a single strand with a knot in the end. And in this particular one, you can start all the way at the end. And it's a little hard. I tried with black and I tried with white. I hope you can see a little bit that sharp needle. And I do this work. I sort of use my knee because I can hold it, and then I can use my hands and do it. It's harder if you hold it on a table to try and do it. Then I go down again, and I can feel that I'm catching the material on the back because my finger hits it. But you can turn it over and look. It's hard to see on this one. I can see they're going through. That's the lovely thing about doing cotton fabric. I mean, it's just like slides like through butter. And then I would go all the way to the end to get that one in place. And when I got to the end, I double stitch a couple of times. And again, I still like to open my seams so they lay flat. So that was easy. We've taken care of the center block, and we've got the 4 corners already cut out of our background black material. So we've got the 4 log cabin blocks that we're going to work on, the courthouse steps. And the first thing you're going to do, this is a little different from some of them, because instead of just using one block for the center like you do in the half log cabin, or even putting 2 together when you're doing the other patterns of log cabin, this one takes 3 to make it work. And so I've sewn 3 of the 1.5 inch squares together, and those went really slow. And you said, I'm not going to do this the whole way. Well, that's the only ones that are really slow. And the other thing is that if you want to keep up with it as you go, you can do all 4 blocks. So take and do that set, then do your next set and your next set until you have your 4 sets. Then you're ready to move on to the next one. Okay. Here was your center that we just did. I'm going to pull it out. The very first thing that's added is 3.5 inch of your pattern material to both sides of the strip that you just made. And it still doesn't look like you've got anything going till you add the next pieces. Okay, and just like doing the log cabins, here we did those 2 on the outside. Now we're going to do the 2 on the outside on the other area. But you got a hint because you had that black box. The strip is going to go to that black box. And then you had your pink. Well, now this one I did pink. I did a variation and then did it. And then, if you remember your log cabins, the next thing would be to go back to your pattern. So I would be putting a pattern piece on this side. And a pattern piece on that side. All right. The next piece I'm going to take, this time I'm going to put, let's see, what did I do? I must have missed cutting a piece. All right, so, but the next piece you can see would be the next pink, and it would go across. I'll hold it back there and see what I did. Oh, the seams aren't in them. Oh, yeah, that's the craziest thing. You got to realize that the seams are going to take up a good chunk of that. All right, I'm sorry about that. And then this piece would fit down there. And then with the addition of the 2 outside pieces, you finished. And here again, you can be working all 4 blocks that you want when you're finished. And then you get the last one on there, and it makes a really pretty block. Okay. And now as we go back to the original one, if you look at it, can you see the parts that we did? There are our 3 in the center. Then here was the outside pattern piece that we added on, and that made a nice square. Then we're starting to build our stairs. So here's the next piece added to the side is black. Well, this one is going to be the aqua color. We get those on, we go back and we do our pattern again. We're back to being square. And then here comes the next step and the next step. And then finally we put on that last piece on the outside edge, and we've come back to that nice square. And this one, here's an example of one that's totally sewn. And you can see it'll go pretty fast once you get started. And it's called the Courthouse Star. And you can see the star as you look at it. This was more about the pattern than the hand stitching, but the pattern is really fun, and I think you'll have a good time giving it a try. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching.